On today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, with the Av season right around the corner, why not have an Avalanche primer episode like a Colorado Avalanche 101 from everything from their offseason moves to the burning questions surrounding the Colorado Avalanche for this upcoming season. It's going to be a hefty one. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
Your Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. Make sure you're following us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram and Threads. Questions, comments, concerns, opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. Follow us on our YouTube channel. Over on YouTube, hit subscribe. Get notified when a new show goes live, and make sure you subscribe to our subtext. Link to that's in the show notes below. And when you do, chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. We get your opinion, everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast. And definitely go sign up for that now with the season right around the corner. We get a lot of input from our people over on subtext. Have good conversations over there. All right, sir. So yeah, with the season, I mean, the first preseason game is the day that this episode comes out on Monday. So preseason is officially here. We've already had some games over the weekend. So for the Avalanche, game one is Monday. And we kind of figured, with the onset of a new season, that's when you start getting those fans. We have like the everydayers that we call them that doesn't matter if it's during the season or the off season, they're tuning in every day, soak up everything Colorado Avalanche, which is great. And then you have those people that kind of, okay, I get it. Like they tune out after the season is over, and maybe you're starting to get them back a little bit. They know that a season is right around the corner. So we wanted to kind of put a all-inclusive episode together on everything related to the Avalanche, from, like I said in the beginning, like from the moves they made in the offseason to who's on the roster, to those burning questions, and even some prospects and rookies. So this is like your reference point for the Colorado Avalanche season coming up.
This is basically your Locked On Avalanche season premiere for the 2024-25 season.
Gotta love it. So if we're going to do this, we might as well start with where the offseason began, and kind of go through that and kind of like some of the additions and subtractions that the Avalanche had when their season ended to the hands of the Dallas Stars in the second round of the playoffs last year. So a lot of moves were made by the Avalanche, but we knew going into the offseason there wasn't going to be a lot of movement, and we knew there was going to be a lot of low AAV, low term deals. Some of the key additions, I guess you could call them, would be Parker Kelly. You did get Jacob McDonald returning. You got Eric Brandstrom. You got Calvin DeHaan. You brought in P.E. Belmar on a PTO, and you brought in Oliver Shillington from the Calgary Flames on a free agent deal. Those were some of the big additions that they made. Some of the key subtractions that came from the team due to retirement. Andrew Cogliano, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Brandon Duhaime left. Zach Parise, he also retired. Yakov Trenin signed with Minnesota, I believe. Jack Johnson, he left. He went back to Columbus. And Sean Walker, the rare rental for the Colorado Avalanche, he left as well. So those are some of your big ones. There are others, obviously, which the Avalanche brought in, and you may or may not see some of those guys. But who's the one guy that they brought back for the AHL? Was it Tynan that they brought back?
The TJ Tynan.
Yeah,
you got
Tynan.
the Megnas back.
Yeah.
So you get your AHL like fill back out. So you get McDonald, and it's like you're getting the band back together. Callie Rosen's back.
Mm-hmm.
So like this is kind of the stuff you want to see, and like you're talking additions and subtractions. There's also some retentions there too, and they signed Casey Middlestat.
Yep.
And that's where all this is basically forming around. Like Casey Middleset, you have an established 2C for a little while, and you brought back Drouin as well. So you're excited to see where those deals are going to go as well. The additions and subtractions, some of those are retirement. Hey, Pavel Francouz, he is also retired. He is gone. No longer a member of the team.
And KV Ranta, you re-signed as well. He was nice. So your big moves for the Avalanche in the offseason would probably be the Jonathan Drouin, which was a 1 year, $2.5 million deal. And then, of course, the Casey Middleset one. That's kind of your biggest move for the Avalanche. So it's not somebody that you brought in on the RFA or UFA wire. You obviously picked him up at the trade deadline, and he was an RFA, so you retained him, which you expected to do. But not a lot of money for the Avalanche to burn because of the Landeskog and Achuskin stuff, which we'll get to later. That's in the burning question section. But that was like their moves. That was their moves for the offseason. Nothing that really set the league on fire. But again, what you expected from the Avalanche because of their cap situation. And overall, I think they did a pretty good job for what they brought in and what they, like you said, what they retained with Middlestat and Drouin, and those guys. And then the things that they did bring in, which we knew that's how it was going to happen. I think they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, this is a very solid team, especially, and we'll get to it, like you said, in the burning questions about Gabe and Nichushkin. But just let's play devil's advocate. If they come back completely healthy, or even pick your favorite, one of the two. This is a really good roster going into this year. And yes, I agree with you. There's not a lot of pomp and circumstance going into this year. Like last year, when coming into this year, when you had the additions of like Ryan Johansson and Miles Wood and Ross Colton. Like it's not that flashy line and pickups that you're really fired up for the year. But if you take a step back and look at how this roster is, this is a really solid roster to start the year.
And when you look at that roster, and no matter what team you're rooting for, the guys you look at are the superstars. Mm-hmm. And for the Avalanche, this is no secret who it is. Your top three: Nathan MacKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, and Cale Makar. And when you look at those guys, those are the guys that you pinch yourself and you constantly say, don't take this for granted, because those are guys that any other team would love to have and love to start a franchise around. And you have three of them. And then during the offseason, you saw a lot of websites and social media outlets giving their top 10, whatever. Yeah. And if you did overall players, if you went by position, all three of those guys are top 10 within their position. If you went just overall players, those three guys were showing up in the top 10 by themselves, like just for overall positions. So to have three guys in the top 10 of the entire league playing on your team is not something that you ever want to take for granted. And it's one of those things where you say, enjoy this, because they're all playing for your team and it's exciting to watch them play.
And you have Nathan MacKinnon coming into this year, the defending reigning Ted Lindsay and Hart Trophy winner. So he's carrying in the hardware from last year, a successful campaign, and you're curious to see what he does as a follow-up act. And he did, as we mentioned earlier, he has Jonathan Drouin back, his little addition and his buddy from his junior days. That was a beautiful team up throughout the year last year.
Yeah. So why don't we get a break in right now, and we come back from that, we'll get to doing the roster position by position. We'll look at the forwards, look at the defense, and look at the goalie position. And we'll kind of break all of that down, what to expect from them. So we'll do that after our first break. All right, we got a brand new ad sponsor here, and that is PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the #1 America's daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. I am one of them. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. And when my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes, Kyle. That's like 2 episodes of ours.
Hey, wow, let's do it.
Well, two total. One total. Well, you get 2 payouts in one episode is basically what I'm trying to say here. That's pretty amazing. And PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And I have been playing PrizePicks for a little while now. It's fun. It's simple. It's easy. They just give you a list of players and they say, here's, Bo Nix could be one of the guys. And you think he's going to throw more or less than 200.5 yards. And you hit more or less. And if he throws more, that starts your streak. And the bigger your streak is, the more winnings you have. Super simple, super easy. And it's honestly, it's a lot of fun. So I don't know if you're signed up for this thing yet.
I'm going to be signing up at the end of the week. So
you should be. Yeah,
I'm listening intently.
And when you do, you download PrizePicks. If you download the app today, use the code LOCKEDONNHL. You get $50 instantly when you play $5. That code is LOCKEDONNHL, and PrizePicks will get you $50 instantly after you play only $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. That is PrizePicks. Run your game. Also brought to you by Indeed. You know Indeed. You love it. We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. And you don't search, you match with Indeed. Because if you need to hire, Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. So ditch the busy work and use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. So all listeners of Locked On Avalanche will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support Locked On Avalanche by saying you heard about Indeed on this very podcast. So if you need to hire, you need Indeed. All right, so let's get to this roster, sir, that we were talking about in the first segment. And beyond the superstars, what do we have? So not necessarily have to do this like line by line because we don't really know. We kind of had a rough idea, but it's still kind of out there where guys are going to be plugged in. We know Nathan McKinnon's going to be on the top line. We know Mikko Rantanen probably will be on the top line, although they divide it up every once in a while. That's why I don't want to get too much into, line 1, line 2, line 3. But you guys at the top, you're looking at your Nathan McKinnons, your Mikko Rantanens. You probably will have Jonathan Drouin there at your top line. And then for below that, Casey Middlestat, like we said earlier, who's, he's got his new contract. Arturi Lehkonen, who is injured. And although he looks good in practice as far as like skating goes, they're saying that it's unlikely that he is set to start the season game 1. We don't know when he could come back, but that first game or handful of games, he might not be there for. And that's even though it's only, you would assume it's a short amount of time, he's a big deal to this team. He's a very, he's almost like, I want to say underrated, but not to like Avalanche circles. I think in the outside of the Avalanche world, people don't really understand what Arturi Lehkonen brings to this team. He's a big, big piece. So any games he misses is not ideal, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be a lot.
And for everything Lehkonen was, like, he had a very loud season when he got here. And then last year was kind of a quieter year. Like he had injury problems, and you hate for this to carry on into this year because everything we were talking about with Nathan McKinnon, what are you going to do to follow up the Hart and the Lindsay? I had that kind of feeling with Lehkonen coming into this year. Like, I feel like having all that comfortability with the roster and the familiarity with everybody around him, I really felt like this is going to be a year that he's going to really kick it up a notch and get some really incredible numbers, but it's going to be a slower start before we see that. But I really was looking forward to seeing what Lehkonen could provide, especially knowing you have a solidified center going forward.
Yeah. And I know we're not going to do this, line by line, but there is one line that we are always excited about, and they have their own nickname. And when you have your own nickname, you look forward to when they play. And that is the Roaring 20s line. And that is Miles Wood, Ross Colton, and Logan O'Connor, called the Roaring 20s because all their numbers are in the 20s. And when they were able to play together consistently, they were great and they were exciting. Logan O'Connor is another guy who was injured, but I don't feel like he's going to miss time. It sounds like he'll be okay for game one. And Miles Wood is like the wild card here. And I don't use the term wild. I use it intentionally because he's just a madman out there. You never really know what you're going to get from him. He could make a move that you were like, is that Nathan McKinnon? And then he'll make a move where it's like, oh yeah, that's Miles Wood. Because he's a speed demon, but sometimes he can't control that speed. Sometimes he can't control the puck. And other times it looks like poetry in motion. It's so weird to watch him play. So if he can control that, they have a good player on their hands because he goes 120% all the time.
And, Miles Wood, the relationship between Miles Wood and Ross Colton reminds me of the Bash Brothers, like from the Mighty Ducks movies. Like it's that attitude. And like Ross Colton is like controlled. He's more of the subdued personality, but Miles Wood is all over the place. Mm-hmm. And it feels like Ross Colton does a really good job at like reeling him in and kind of pointing him in a direction, saying like, I need you over there and we're going to make something happen. And they had to adapt because of LOC going down last year. And I'm really excited to see when LOC comes back and how this new line looks, knowing they had magic going last year.
I'm really curious to see Ross Colton this year.
Yeah.
Because I thought he had a good season in his first year with the Avs. And I think this could be one of those things where it's like, okay, he's got a year under his belt with a brand new team. And now the comfortability hopefully has set in and he'll be even better going into this year because the Avs have some cap issues that they are probably going to have to address at some point during this year. And Colton is a guy that is you hear him on a list. Like if the Avalanche have to get rid of a contract, there's some guys that get thrown out. Colton is on there. Now he does, he's got a list, a no trade list that kicked in. I think it was like July 1st or something like that. That kicked in. So he would have to agree to go to one of those teams because I don't think it's a full no move clause, if I'm not mistaken. Does it say on here?
But again, like Ross Colton being on a possible trade list is not because of it not working in Colorado. On that line, it's the one that really commands value, especially with his time in Tampa Bay. Like if you're going to try and get this team cap compliant, which they're currently not as we are recording, this is the one that you can easily make some adjustments to when you're looking at forwards. If you have to make a move where you could get some value and free some things up for the Avalanche.
So according to Puckpedia, this year it's a no trade clause. Next year it's modified. So this year, if he goes anywhere, he'd have to agree to it. So he might not be going anywhere this year, and that's fine because I think he's a really good player for this team. And I think he's going to have a really good year to next year, if we're talking about this again, make it difficult for the Avalanche to want to move this guy because he's making $4 million a year, which is okay. Is it a little pricey for a third line center? Maybe a little bit, but not so much where if he's doing his job, the Avalanche will be like, nah, we're not going to move him. He's good for that role. So I'm really interested to see how Ross Colton does this year. I think he's going to have a great season.
Especially really if he is the face and the presence and the captain of that Roaring 20s line, and they become a presence for more than 2 weeks, 3 weeks. If they could be a commanding presence and roll that third line out, then yes, he's going to make it really difficult at the end of the year.
Because that's what the Avalanche need. The Avalanche, we know their top lines are great. What is their depth going to look like this year? Starts with that Roaring 20s line and beyond. Your fourth line is kind of up in the air right now. You don't really know what that's going to be. We can kind of make some suggestions here and some guess. And the funny thing is, at the beginning of the offseason, we were kind of talking a lot about these young guys that, are going to have to step up. And then the Avalanche went out and got some veterans, and then they go get P.E. Belmar for a PTO. So he kind of throws his hat into the ring here. He could be on that fourth line. You don't really know. Like, we'll get into like the rookies and prospects in a second, but as far as like the depth guys go, I still like Parker Kelly. I think he's really good for this team. When you lose guys like Cogliano, that's a role that you have to try to replace as best as you possibly can. You can't replace Andrew Cogliano, the person, and what he did on the ice, but you can try to. And I think that's Parker Kelly. As close as they can get to him, I think that's him. So I really like what Parker Kelly can do, but there is a logjam for depth players. And who's it going to be?
Yeah, and you talk about Parker Kelly being a replacement for Cogliano. I kind of feel like that's what the PTO is with Pebbles coming back. Yeah. You want a locker room guy who understands the assignment, knows what to do. Like, Pebbles could be that fourth line center, kind of your Cogliano replacement. But then for everybody who's kind of checked out on the off season and then now just checking back in, you have P.E. Belmar as a possible fourth line center, and then you have Callum Ritchie, who has been making a name for himself in like really making it a difficult thing, on top of many other names that could possibly be a fourth line center. It's a wealth of riches when it comes to what you want to do with that fourth line. If you want it to be physical, if you want it to be a kid line, which has been thrown out a couple times in practice and training camp, there's a lot of things you can do. Where they're going to go depends on, honestly, that top 9 for this Avalanche team and what they want the attitude to be. They have a lot of versatility when it comes to that depth.
Yeah, because don't sleep on like Kiviranta either. No. Like he's back. Like, he could another year with the team. Like, who knows what he could bring. Yeah, but it's we'll see where this goes. And Jared Bednar had a really good line in after practice on Saturday or Sunday, where he was basically like, I think he was kind of referring to. Well, I think the question was about Belmar, but he made it about everybody. He made it about like the prospects and yes, Belmar and the veterans. And he said, like, everybody has come in here and earn it. It's not just handed to you. So you hear all of this about these guys, the young guys taking a step up. Okay, yeah, do that, earn it, and then you can get the position. So I liked hearing that from him, and you 100% believe him. It's just because Belmar has played for this team in the past, and they threw a PTO to him, doesn't mean that he's now like slotted in. Maybe he's at the top of the lists, but he still needs to earn that. He needs to keep that and be slotted in that position, because if he doesn't, those young guys are battling to take that position from him. And if they earn it, they're going to get it.
Just ask Alex Newhook and Martin Kaut about having a spot and earning a spot. And that's what you're looking at when it comes to the depth this year. Especially
Alex Newhook. Mm-hmm. That was given to him on a silver platter, and it was too much. So you mentioned the rookies and the prospects. Let's talk about them, and then we'll get to some of the burning questions for the Colorado Avalanche this season. We'll do that coming up next. All right, first we're going to hear from FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. That is America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you play your first $5 bet. And yes, you can even bet the Denver Broncos, which pulled off a minor miracle. Didn't see that coming, but good Lord, can we get more of that?
Just don't throw, Bo. Run, Bo, run.
Oh my God, let's get more of that. So you can do all of that. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Head there today and bet anything that you want. Yes, like we said. Even Denver Broncos. All right. So, yeah, some of these guys that are fighting for these positions, rookies and prospects. And the Avalanche, They have some good ones at the training camp right now. We'll see what they can do. Your number one prospect's Callum Ritchie. All day, every day, no matter who you're talking to, he is their number one prospect. He is the guy who could really make a name for himself and grab a position. But it's the interesting thing is we were talking about this with Dater when he was on last week. He's not. You didn't draft Callum Ritchie in the first round to go bury him on the fourth line. So if that's all they have for him right now, do they just say, let's put this off another year and see what happens with Gabe Landeskog? See what happens with Vanachuskin, just see what happens in general with our team. And maybe next year there's more of an opportunity to put you in a role that we would more prefer you in, a middle six role. So he's an interesting one because I think he can take a position, but if it's that fourth line, which I wouldn't mind him there in the first year, but the Avalanche probably like, no, we don't want to put him down there. That might stunt his growth a little bit.
And to everybody who's kind of checked out on the offseason as well, the hype around Callum Ritchie is to the level it was at the end of the season with Riley Tufte, who is no longer with the Avs anymore. He is back with Dallas. But he's that name that when things aren't going right, wait till Callum Ritchie joins. Why aren't we calling up Callum Ritchie? That's the level of just like he could make a spot on this team, and it could go to Bednar's comments about, hey, you got to earn your spot. And guess what? Callum Ritchie is doing that right now, and the preseason begins tonight.
Yeah, so he's your number one guy. Like the guys that you're gonna hear from for prospects are him. Jean-Luc Foudy is another one he's been around the team for long enough where he's got to take that step. Sean Behrens went to Denver University, and this is his first year. Really trying to get his name and throw his hat in the ring on the defense. You have Oscar Olausson is another one who's been around for a few years now. He's kind of in the same situation as Foudy. Olausson's a first rounder. So those first rounders, you just kind of like after they've been here for a few years. Okay, now is the time. Now with Foudy, he's a third rounder. You still feel good about his game. When we came up a couple of years ago and played a handful of games, looked good. Just with injuries and stuff like that, has not been able to come back up and stay there. But Olausson, same thing. He's only played a few games and nothing really is materialized. It's okay because he's still young and you're still going through those progressions and they're still improving. But you want to see things, especially from Foudy, from Olausson and Behrens. While I think it's maybe a little bit premature, especially with the guys that they signed on defense, I don't think he'll get a position this year. But hey, he might be a guy or will be a guy that they'll call up every once in a while when needed, and he'll see some action this year, which will only help him going forward. Oh, hang on.
And I hear everybody screaming right now, the everydayers that have been screaming this since last season. Yes, Kovalenko still exists, and yes, he can make a name on this roster as well. So that's also out of left field, a name that's kind of quietly coming into his own, and this could be his spot on the Avalanche this year. So you don't know with these prospects and everybody coming in and reporting for camp.
According to all accounts, he's having a pretty good camp, Kovalenko. So he might kind of upset the whole hierarchy here. And Sam Malinsky is another one. I want to forget about Sam Malinsky. Defender, again, there is a lot to pick from at defense, but like Dater said, Joe Sakic told him could never have enough defense. So we'll see. It's just really going to be interesting to see who gets these spots because there's a lot to go around and how many of these rookies and these prospects get them. And not only get them, hold on to them for the season. So that's definitely something that we're going to be watching. All right. As far as like the head coach goes, we all know Jared Bednar. We all love Jared Bednar, best coach that they've had in their history. He's got more wins than any coach in their history. We talk all the time about how even though that's the case, he doesn't get enough respect around the league. I'm going to get to a point where I don't let that bother me. But like Lord of the Rings, it is not this day. And it's not this season. So
I was about to say, I don't think it's going to be this season because this is kind of the situation roster wise where Bednar shines, where you
Yes.
get these options with depth and making a name and writing the hot hand. And this is going to be a year where this is a kind of an embarrassment of riches for Bednar to put these rosters together. And this is his area. Like, he's going to make this could be one of his better coaching jobs if everything falls into place for him.
Yeah, we'll see. I just want this guy to have a completely healthy roster. And I know it's a sport of hockey and that's almost impossible, but man, does he get the best out of his players.
Yeah.
And they love playing for him and they know he's in charge and he's a player's coach. But he won't let you get away with things. You know, he will call you out and he'll do it privately. Very rarely. Remember last year, I can't remember what game it was, but in the post-game press conference, he went off on them as in a Jared Bednar way. It was not like a Tortorella rant or anything like that, but he was disappointed and he let it be known to the media, and he doesn't do that. So when that happened, man, if that was me and I was an Avalanche player, I would have been like, oh, he did that. Okay, we need to turn things around, because I think he handles things in-house a lot.
Yeah.
Now, if you're not doing something right, he will correct it and he will talk to you about it and he'll give you an opportunity to correct it. And if you don't, we're making a switch. It's just that simple. It is and I can't stand the Patriots, but it is the do your job mentality. Do your job or we'll find someone else that will.
And this is the next man up mentality that the Avalanche really thrived in on their cup run. And again, with all these prospects and even the PTOs and your veteran guys that they signed, like Brandstrom and DeHaan, like they will find the next man up. So if you're not listening and you're not adjusting, someone will.
Mm-hmm. And that leads us to the burning questions for the well, we didn't get to goalies. We do got to get to goalies quickly too. We probably should do that. You know, we've talked about goalies so much this offseason. That is going to be another position to watch all season long. Alexander Georgiev is your starter. He's going to be your starter for the duration of this season. We have both said that we think this is his last season, no matter what, whether he has a good season or a bad season. Much prefer a good season, clearly, but you have Justus Annunen, who is his backup right now, and how much do they let him play? Which I would hope they give him a good amount of games, because you need to rest Georgie when you can to have him ready for a postseason run. That goes hand in hand. But it will be interesting to watch what Georgiev does, because 2 years in Colorado, it's been a wild ride. So you would love to see just some consistent play out of him over the course of the season.
Ideally, you would like to see a 41-41 split with these goalies, because
I don't know about that, but
Georgiev is on his way out, good or bad, and Justus has to be tested, especially with the goalies coming in behind. You really need to see what you have here.
hang on.
You got a really good sample size with Georgiev. You know what you're going to get. You need to know what you're going to get out of Justus, because the future for the goalie position is coming. And if you need to address this at the trade deadline and get through the season, you need to know this now. So I would hope, theoretically, for an even split, because there have been times that Georgiev has let you down where I would be perfectly fine with Justus coming in there, because how much worse can it get? You honestly just need to figure it out for goalie, but Georgiev is 1A by a little.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into the burning question. That is one of them. One of the burning questions is the goalie position. The biggest burning question for the Avalanche is definitely Gabe Landeskog and Val Nichushkin, for different reasons. Obviously, with Gabe Landeskog, when is he going to come back? Which game is that where he's going to come back? They're saying sooner rather than later. Could that be late October, early November? Maybe. And then when he comes back, is he able to sustain a NHL season and play the way that he wants to play and be able to help this team? He's not going to be out there if he's not helping them. So that is going to be something to watch every single game, how he's playing. And then the Val Nichushkin one is, it's well documented. He's just been suspended the last 2 postseasons. Does not help the Avalanche, obviously, The numbers are what they are when he plays with them, and without them, they are a much better team when he is there. He's such a big piece of this roster and this team. They need him there. He's coming back. I know there's a side of the fan base that just wants him gone. I can understand that, but you need to get on board with his return because all the signs point to that happening, and everything that if Avalanche are doing a bait and switch here, they're doing a really good job of it, of saying like, oh, we're going to welcome him back with open arms. And then when he comes back, they trade him, because then they'd had just all of us fooled, because everything they're saying is we're welcoming him back with open arms. But the thing for him is you're not going to be watching. I mean, you will be watching him throughout the regular season, but when that postseason hits, Kyle, people are going to be waking up every morning, checking their phones. Did Valenchushkin get suspended again? And that's just the nature that he's created.
And see, that's the thing with Val Nichushkin. They're probably welcoming him back with open arms so they can bring him back, give him a hug, and take all the team-issued stuff right off of him and ship him out the door. No, but that's the thing. When all this, the burning questions around Gabe and Nuke come back, when Gabe comes back, the pomp and circumstance, he's finally back. That's wonderful. Game 2 or 3, now you're going to start looking at this contract, because we talked about all the additions and subtractions and retentions on this team. Now you're occupying contract space. Like, we're talking about, are you playing up to your millions that we've had to make all these adjustments and had to really 1 year, 1 million ourselves to death to put a team together? Are you playing up to that level? Gabe Landeskog is going to be integrity. What percentage of Gabe Landeskog comes back when he comes back is going to be the question. And is it, looking at that contract, is this, he also is wise to this, and he is going to accept, if he's not there, he might address this. But Val, same thing. We're paying you this much to play with us. Can you play with us? That's the question. So once they come back, it's, are you worth what we're paying you? Because this is a business, and we can make business decisions now.
And one of those business decisions, this is another big question for them. Maybe not so huge, massive right now, but it's on the back burner, and that's Mikko and his extension. I just get the vibe something was ready to go, and when he got back into town, he was ready to sign something. And then Leon Draisaitl went and signed a massive contract, and who apparently they have the same agent. And then things were held up. So do I still think something's going to get done? Absolutely. 100% I do. It's just, I don't, it's just a matter of when. And it could happen at any point during the season. So is it a rush? No, not right now, but you do want that done pretty soon, by December 1st anyway. So that's a big question for them going into the season.
If I was in the Avalanche organization, I would have loved to get this done before the puck drops on the season. I know probably they're waiting now for Gabe and or Nate Nichushkin's return. You're wanting to see how those pan out, and if you're going to have to carry that money into next year and what that contract's going to look like. But I think that's where the money is. That's where the holdup is. It's not because Mikko doesn't want to come back. It's how much money are you coming back for? And Nuke and Gabe are your answers.
And then as far as expectations for this team this year, we're not going to do any predictions right now. We'll do that, right before the season starts. But as far as like this team and what they expect of themselves, they expect to be playing in a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
And are they, we've said this before, are they head and shoulders like the best team in the league this year? No. Are they one of the better teams in the league this year? Yeah, they're up there. But they're not the favorite. And we've been used to the Avalanche going into the season as the favorite, for the past handful of seasons. And that's not the case this year, but that, the favorite doesn't always win the Stanley Cup. Hate to break it to people. So, are they in a position to do that? Yeah. Do things have to go their way? Of course they do. Anybody that wins the Stanley Cup, things got to bounce their way. This is a good team. The Avalanche have a good team. They have superstars on this team that produce. I'm not going to get into the injury thing because that goes without saying. You want to be healthy, but this team expects to play for and win Stanley Cups. They're in that quote unquote window that everybody likes to talk about. Can they do it? Definitely can. They definitely can. It won't be easy like the 22 season that was as easy as it could be, but it will be tough. But they can play with anybody, and when you have those guys on that team that they do, and they're superstars, they're capable. They're definitely capable.
Yeah, this is a good team, really good team on paper. But as we saw last year, good teams don't get you anywhere unless they play great and they bond together. And the Avs had to get rid of half of their team at trade deadline to make a great team, and it just did not come to fruition. This year, they have a good team that has all the potentials of being a great team. It's on the team now to be great. And
Yeah.
that's where the Avalanche are sitting this year.
They got all the potential in the world to do it.
Yep.
So it'll be a fun, exciting season, like the past so many have. When you have guys like Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar on your team, they're fun to watch. So tune in, watch them, and hey, maybe we'll get something with Comcast. That rumor seemed to have died down quickly again. We got another rumor that hey, maybe something's brewing, and then we haven't heard anything about it. So maybe they'll shock us with something the day before. Which why would you do that? You would want to tell people about this now so they can sign up for it. But I don't know. I believe that happens when I read about it.
Yeah, we're like 3 years away from honestly having a really good decade of Avalanche hockey. In about 3 years, we can have a decade, and Comcast has made it to where you can't watch at least half of that.
Crazy. It's crazy. So, all right, that's going to wrap it up for today. So that's kind of where everything sits with the Avalanche going into this season. It's sure to be an exciting one. We'll keep this episode pinned to the top of our YouTube channel right up until the season gets underway, so people can kind of use this, like we said, for reference. So all right, that is going to wrap it up for today's episode. We'll be back tomorrow, see how this opening preseason game went and anything else that's going on in Avalanche circles. So thank you for tuning in and making this your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. He's Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am a Chris Maselli, and this is the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.